I tapped the screen to check the time. It was already past 10. No missed calls. No messages. Just the quiet hum of a fan in the hallway and the drip of the faucet I kept meaning to fix. Then a notification popped up, family chat. I opened it, expecting maybe a late happy birthday mom. Instead, it was a photo. Lucas, April, and her mother Marilyn all beaming around a frosted cake. The message underneath said, "So grateful to be celebrating this amazing woman today." The cake read in pink cursive, "Happy birthday, Marilyn." I stared at the screen for a long time before my thumb moved. Third year in a row. Third coincidence. Every time it was something April's mom is sick, they already booked the trip. It overlaps, but they'll call later, except they didn't. I pressed delete. The thread disappeared without a sound. There was no anger. Just the quiet kind of ache you don't show anyone. I finished my tea cold now and rinsed the cup. Then I stepped outside and started watering the porch plants. The begonias were thirsty, and the rosemary had begun to wilt, though I'd started pulling it out in patches, tired of the way it overgrew everything. Across the street, Mrs. Dennison waved while loading her grandkids into the back seat. I smiled. She didn't ask how I was, and I didn't offer it. I spent the rest of the morning folding laundry and scrubbing the corners of the refrigerator. At lunch, I took out the single cupcake I'd bought the night before. Yellow cake cream, frosting, one candle. I lit it. Sat in silence. Blew it out. I sat at the kitchen table with the same small cupcake I'd bought the night before. A simple thing, vanilla soft frosting, no decorations. I'd been buying one every year since Lucas left for college. It felt less embarrassing than a full cake waiting for no one. I never cared for presents. All I ever wanted was someone to sit across from me and say, "I'm here." I took a bite. Sweet but faint. Maybe it was me who'd changed. My mind drifted back to the last birthday I spent with Lucas 5 years ago, a hurried lunch at a diner off the highway. He kept checking the time because he and April were driving straight to Marilyn's lake house afterward. I remember pretending not to notice, folding my napkin carefully while he signed the receipt before the server even brought our plates. We hugged quickly. He promised, "Next year we'll do something real." Next year never arrived. I stood to rinse my fork when a knock sounded at the door. It was Nora from next door holding a warm loaf of bread wrapped in a towel. "Thought you might like this," she said. "Are your people coming by today?" I told her yes later and thanked her. She didn't press. I was grateful for that. When she left, the house felt heavier than before, as if the air itself knew the truth I wouldn't say aloud. That afternoon, after cleaning up, I drove to the small regional bank downtown. My safe deposit box was in the back corner, the same box I hadn't opened since my husband died. I signed the slip, waited for the manager, and followed him into the private room. Inside the box was the envelope I'd taken out that morning, now joined by the others I'd placed there years ago. Insurance papers, old bonds, and the letter, my husband's handwriting steady and familiar, a reminder of the account he'd opened. Funds he told me not to use unless I truly needed them. For the first time, I wondered if he somehow knew this moment would come, and as I folded the letter back into place, the decision I'd been circling all day settled quietly into my chest. 2 days later, I stood barefoot in a house that didn't belong to me yet, but already felt like it could. The floors were cool beneath my soles, and the windows let in a kind of light I hadn't felt in years. Morning light. Soft, steady, generous. The ocean was just beyond the glass doors, close enough to hear, far enough to breathe. The realtor Callie was polite young, full of soft-spoken suggestions. "Some folks love to turn these into family retreats," she said. "Enough space for grandkids visiting guests." "Are you helping someone look?" "No," I said. "This is for me." She blinked, nodded, and didn't ask again. We walked through the rooms, her heels clicking against the tile. There was something comforting in the layout. Not grand, not cold, just quiet. a place that didn't expect noise to feel alive. I stopped in the kitchen. It faced the sea, framed by white shelves and a deep basin sink. I stood there longer than I meant to. "I'll take it," I said. She looked surprised, but smiled. I handed her the file with the wire transfer details money that had slept quietly in a place only my husband and I ever knew. I hadn't touched it, not even when the roof leaked or when I needed new brakes. The paperwork would take a day or two, but the decision felt immediate. I ordered a simple sofa, a round table, a library shelf. I chose a record player, the kind that lets you watch the vinyl spin beneath the arm. No television. I didn't want to fill it with other people's noise. I didn't call Lucas. I didn't tell my sister. I didn't even tell Nora. There was something sacred in the silence. Something I wasn't willing to offer up for commentary. As I drove back to my old house, I glanced once more at the email confirmation in my inbox. The subject line was short: "Sale pending." And for the first time in years, the day felt like it belonged to me. I woke early, not because I expected anything, but because I didn't. The kind of waking that comes not from excitement, but from habit, thousands of mornings, same hour, same stretch of silence. The villa smelled like salt and wood polish. The new table had been delivered the day before. I wiped it down even though it was clean, then made myself coffee and carried it out to the balcony. The sun was just cresting over the water, the sky still unsure if it wanted to be pink or blue. I took a picture, no filter, no edits, just the view from where I sat. I opened the app, typed the caption slowly, "A different kind of candle this year." Then I pressed post and set the phone down. The comments came within minutes. "Barbara from church, stunning. Where are you, Elise, my old colleague? Looks like paradise. Happy late birthday, M." Nora replied with 3 hearts and a loaf emoji. They didn't know where I was. That was the point. The only one who didn't comment, who hadn't said a word, was Lucas. At noon, I made lunch from what I had in the small fridge. Toasted bread, tomatoes, cheese, fresh herbs from the basket the farmer's market man insisted I take for free. I read by the window. I napped. I didn't check the time. At exactly 8:04 p.m., the phone lit up, Lucas calling. I let it ring. A few minutes later, a text from April. "Where are you? Is everything okay?" I turned the phone over. Let the screen fade back to black. Outside, the moon had taken the place of the sun, its reflection stretching long across the waves. I stayed there until the coffee was cold, the sea dark, and the wind too sharp for my knees. Then I folded the blanket across the chair, slid the door closed behind me, and walked to the kitchen, the one that faced the water, and had no empty chairs waiting at its table. He arrived on a humid afternoon, the kind where the wind barely moved the palms outside Lucas's old silver sedan, pulling into the driveway of my former house, the one that no longer held my things, no longer held me. Nora called a few minutes later. "Your boy's here," she said quietly. "I told him you'd moved. He looked surprised." Surprised. That was one word for it. Less than 20 minutes later, gravel crunched outside the villa. I stepped onto the porch, wiping my hands on a dish towel, and saw him standing at the gate. His face was tight, confused, overwhelmed. He looked like a man trying to fit a puzzle piece into the wrong picture. I opened the gate halfway. "You found it," I said. He didn't smile. "Why didn't you tell me you moved? I didn't think it would matter." His eyes swept over the villa, the long balcony, the soft white walls, the glimmer of water behind me. "You bought a place like this, without telling me I did. You should have talked to me," he said. "This is a big financial decision. And you never mentioned having this kind of money." I studied him for a moment. "You've spent years not asking." He blinked, offended. "So you were hiding it from your own son." "I was living my life," I said. "There's a difference." He stepped closer. "You don't trust me. That's what this is." I held his gaze. "When you forgot my birthday the first time, I forgave it. The fifth time I understood it. You weren't forgetting by accident. You were choosing other people. His lips tightened. That's not fair. It's the truth. The wind shifted, then carrying the salt air between us. I offered, "Would you like some coffee?" He didn't answer, just shook his head, turned and walked back to his car. I didn't follow him. I watched until the taillights disappeared down the road, then closed the gate gently and went inside to finish washing the dishes. I laid the table out on the back patio. Nothing fancy, just what I had. Grilled fish with a bit of lemon, roasted squash, and green beans from the market down the road. I filled a glass pitcher with cool water and floated a few slices of citrus in it, not because it looked nice, but because I liked the smell. Pat from 3 houses down brought a peach cobbler. Marion brought her husband, quiet and kind, who offered to help with chairs and didn't take no for an answer. The twins from next door came too still in their soccer uniforms tracking in sand. I didn't mind sweeping up later. The music played soft from the living room, the record player spinning one of the old jazz albums I found in a thrift shop. And no one told me to turn it down. No one asked how long we'd be out here or when I planned to clear the table. We ate slow past dishes without rush. I laughed at something Marion said, and it startled me how easy it came out of my mouth. How light it felt, untangled from the tightness that used to live in my chest at every family dinner where I made the food and cleared the plates while someone else made the toasts. When the last dish was done and the guests had hugged their goodbyes, I made tea and sat with my laptop. Just one email. From April. Subject line, "We're worried." I opened it. The body was long and polite. Phrases like, "Managing aging transitions, streamlining responsibilities, and ease the burden of property maintenance." Attached were 3 PDFs brochures for senior communities, each with smiling women on swings or holding knitting needles. I read it once. Then again. Not a question, not an invitation to talk. Just a plan they'd made for me, as if the villa, the meals, the laughter, none of it proved I was still here. I closed the laptop, slid it to the side, and opened the book I'd been reading. The moon was already high when I finally turned out the lights and carried the tea mug to the sink. The invitations weren't printed, just quiet phone calls and handwritten notes tucked into paper bags at the bakery or left on desks at the library. I didn't fuss over RSVPs or ask anyone to bring anything. I simply said, "If you can come, the table's yours." I roasted 2 chickens, made a big bowl of buttered corn, and bought fresh rolls from the man who always saved my favorite loaf, the one with sea salt and a dark crust. I steeped a pitcher of tea and chilled wine, just enough for those who might say yes. They came. Janelle, who was in my first 9th grade English class, and now taught at the same school. Miss Dottie, the retired librarian, who used to set aside every new release she thought I'd like. Daniel, from the post office. The bakery owner and his teenage daughter, who'd once drawn me a birthday card with glitter and a crooked sun. We filled the porch and passed dishes and stories. No one asked about Lucas or April. No one questioned who wasn't there. At one point, someone said, "This place really suits you," and I smiled without having to force it. It did. It suited me in the way a coat finally fits, when you stop trying to wear it over someone else's expectations. When Miss Dottie asked if my family would be visiting soon, I just said, "I keep my table open for those who show up." That was enough. There were no photos taken, no posts to mark the moment. Just laughter carried by the wind and the clink of glasses. I didn't send Lucas an invitation. I didn't owe him one. He used to say I made everything too sentimental. Maybe he was right. This time I made it simple. The table was full. I washed the dishes slowly that night, one by one, letting the warm water soften the silence. In the living room, the record player turned lazily, still playing long after the last guest had gone. The lawyer's office hadn't changed in years. Same stiff chairs, same framed degrees, same quiet hum from the air vent. I'd been here once after my husband died, and again when Lucas insisted we tidy up future matters. Back then, I nodded along and signed where they pointed. Today, I came with my own list. Mr. Harland adjusted his glasses when I handed it to him. You're making substantial changes, he said gently. I'm making accurate ones, I replied. We went through each item, a portion to the scholarship fund for under-resourced students at the high school, where I'd taught for 3 decades, a smaller portion to the community garden behind the library, a little to the bakery owner's daughter. She wanted to study design, but her family couldn't afford out-of-state tuition. And the villa. I left it to Marion, the woman who brought groceries every Saturday morning without being asked. She never made a show of it. She simply handed me a paper bag and said, "Thought you might need this." She had shown up far more than those who shared my blood. Harland paused. And your son, I met his eyes. Lucas has his own life, one he prioritizes fully. He didn't press. He only nodded and continued typing. When we finished, a stack of papers lay between us. My life reshaped in ink. Harland slid the old will into a shredder. The sound of it dissolving felt cleaner than I expected, like a knot coming loose. As I signed the final page, the pen moved without hesitation. Not spite, not anger, just a clear, steady certainty. I gathered my bag, thanked him, and stepped out into the sunlight. The warmth on my shoulders felt different, lighter, as if something long draped over me had finally slipped off. I walked to my car, opened the door, and sat for a moment, breathing in the salt air drifting up from the shore. Then I started the engine and headed toward home, the road curving gently toward the water that waited for me. It was late afternoon when I heard the tires on gravel. I didn't get up right away. Something in me already knew. Lucas stepped out of the car slower than usual. He looked thinner, worn. His shirt was wrinkled, and his beard had grown in patches, less fashion, more neglect. He didn't knock. He just stood by the gate, like he was waiting for permission he wasn't sure he'd get. I opened it and stepped aside. No hug, no smile. He didn't bring flowers, no card, no slice of store-bought cake like he used to bring when he'd remembered last minute. Just his hands in his pockets and the quiet weight of someone who had nowhere else to stand. I didn't come to fight, he said, voice rough. We never meant to hurt you. I sat down on the bench near the edge of the porch, where the sun reached in slants through the railing. He didn't sit until I nudged the other chair with my foot. He lowered himself into it like he hadn't rested in a long time. We didn't mean to hurt you, he said again. But I know now. We also didn't try not to. I didn't answer. I didn't owe him a release from guilt. I just let the silence stretch long and steady. The waves down the hill rolled in and receded. A gull called once. The wind picked up. I thought you'd be angry, he said, looking at his shoes. I was, I replied. He nodded. Didn't defend himself. That was new. We sat like that for a while. He didn't ask to come inside. I didn't ask if he was hungry. The sun slipped lower, the sky shading into orange and pale gold. I didn't forgive him. Not that day. But I didn't send him away either. When he finally stood, he looked out toward the sea. It's beautiful here. Yes, I said. It is. He walked back to his car without saying goodbye. I stayed seated, listening to the water move. There was still something left in the silence, something mine to keep. I woke with no expectations. Just the soft sound of the waves and the pale morning light stretching across the ceiling. 68 years old today. No alarms. No one rushing me to answer a door or pick a place for dinner I didn't want. When I opened the front door, there was a bundle of warm bread wrapped in cloth, the kind with the crust I liked. A small envelope rested on top. Crayon handwriting uneven and joyful. Happy birthday, Miss Marietta. I hope you like strawberries. Sam. I smiled, holding the note to my chest for a moment before placing it on the counter like something fragile. No calls came. No messages from Lucas. No group text from April. Not even a reaction to the photo I hadn't posted. I brewed coffee, toasted a slice of the bread, and spread it with soft butter. I lit a single candle not on a cake but beside my plate. The flame flickered in the breeze drifting in from the sea. There was no table full of guests, no song, no camera flash. Just me, the tide coming in and the sound of seagulls calling somewhere far off. And yet, I didn't feel forgotten. I ate slowly. The bread was still warm. I poured a second cup of coffee and stayed outside. My feet tucked under me, a blanket across my lap, the morning unfolding without rush. A few neighbors waved as they passed on their morning walks. A stray cat I'd started leaving food for rubbed against the porch railing, then disappeared around the side of the house. The world continued gently and without obligation. I looked out at the water, rising and receding in its familiar rhythm. I had no party to prepare for no one to clean up after. No tight smiles to offer, no gifts to pretend I liked. I was here. The sky was wide and blue, the air tasted like salt and peace, and for the first time in a long, long while, I felt full without asking anyone to fill me.